We are answering question 1 today. When will these things happen? And that means, when will the temple be destroyed? Okay. When will the temple be destroyed? So Jesus, remember, they asked the question and Jesus starts answering it right away. So now what we're looking for, if partial preterism, the timeline is correct, and the tribulation has already happened. If that's correct, then all the things that Jesus says when he's answering number 1 question, they will be things that already happened in the past. So as we are looking at these scriptures, we are looking to see if these indeed are things that happened in the past, okay? Partial or premillennialist, futurist say that all the things that Jesus says in response to this question, that those things have not happened yet. Okay, so this is how we're comparing and contrasting to see, what does the Bible say and how do we interpret it? Are these talking about things that have already happened or things that still are yet to happen? So next, now this one is a little bit weird. I'm going to have to do a little more explaining to show you how I believe that this already has been fulfilled. So then Jesus says this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. Okay, so a lot of futurists, they use this verse and they say, oh, okay, so all the people groups have to be reached by the gospel all over the world before Jesus can come back. And if you watched my podcast last week, I showed you this current map of the unreached peoples of the world. So all of these people who have not yet been reached with the gospel, there's still billions of people in the world today who have not yet heard the gospel, have not been reached by the gospel. A lot of them do not have a Bible that has been translated into their language. There are almost 2,000 languages today that still do not have translations of the Bible, that have not been translated into their language. So that's crazy. I think a lot of people don't realize that. The world's a lot bigger than people realize. So if that's the case, then how could this, that Jesus says, how could this have already happened? How could the gospel have already been preached to the whole world? Because when Jesus says the end will come, remember my argument is he's not talking about the end of the world. He's talking about when the temple is destroyed in AD 70. So how in the world could this have already happened? Okay, so we got to go back to the Greek for me to explain how this has already happened. Okay, so the word that Jesus uses for all the nations, okay, preached in the whole world, to all the nations. So the word that he uses there for the whole world is a word that means the civilized world. It's usually used to talk about the Roman Empire. Okay, so now we know Jesus knew all things. If there were all these people groups that were in different places, that even today have not heard the gospel, Jesus knew that, obviously. So the disciples did not. But the word that Jesus uses here is usually used to talk about the civilized world. So just all the countries, all the people groups that are under the control of the Roman Empire at that time. Okay, so and then we have a couple more. I have one more thing to back that up, because I know that some people might say, "Oh, you're stretching on that one," and I don't want it to appear like I am reaching. I want to just look at what the Bible says and take it for what it says. I don't want to have to try to stretch and try to make things fit into some sort of agenda. So let me show you the other thing that I think supports that this actually did happen. All right, so there are several places in Paul's letters where he describes the gospel as having already been preached in the whole world. Okay, so in Romans, Paul says that your faith is being proclaimed throughout the whole world. He says their voice, so the voice of the Christians, has gone out into all the earth, and their words to the ends of the world. He says later in Romans, Jesus Christ has been made known to all the nations. Then in Colossians, he says, the gospel which has come to you, just as in all the world, is also bearing fruit and increasing. And then he says the gospel was proclaimed in all creation under heaven. Okay, so I think it's very clear that at least Paul believed at this time, when he's writing these letters to the Romans and to the Colossians, that the gospel message had already been preached to the whole world. Okay, so I believe that supports that at that time, by AD 70, the gospel had indeed been considered to be preached all over the known world. Okay, so I believe that works for me. So some people might not agree with that interpretation, but there it is.